Hello, everybody. Are you there?
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
So this is supposed to be the Debian long-term support LTS BoF. We have little agenda, which at the moment, which is due to the fact that it's recorded, and we look forward to your input. Very shortly, for those who don't know LTS, if you go to wiki.debian.org/LTS, there you have all information about LTS. So this is now we are doing Stretch LTS. It's the fourth LTS release. And we plan to support this till June 2020. And after that, we will support Buster. And I'll leave you with this to look at this. Regularly, we have about 15 contributors. Raphael Herzog is writing a monthly blog for LTS where all the reports of everybody is posted. And if you look, it's a bit hidden on the wiki page. This link, contribute financially, has the link to Frisian. The funding. Then there's the LTS sponsorship offer, which is the page I was looking for. And there you see, it's not scrolling right there, that we plan to support Stretch longer than 22 with ELTS. So there were also some discussions of extending LTS, but we think maybe ELTS. And to just give a short thanks to the sponsors, which are listed there as well, I wanted to show these as well, because these pay the work of people who work on LTS. So without this support, LTS would not be there where it's now. And so we made a survey about LTS usage last month, and Utkarsh will now present some of the results, and then we'll get into some open discussion thing, question and answers.
All right, I'll just share my screen. I hope that's clearly visible. Is it good?
Yeah.
All right, great. So we had, this is a Stretch LTS, is the fourth iteration of LTS, and we conducted a survey this time. Quick statistics that this survey had 14 questions, and it was held for 2 weeks. The duration of survey was 2 weeks, and we've got around 1,700, to be precise, 1,764 responses. And we've got 892 complete responses in all. When I say complete responses, I mean the surveyees submitted all the filled all the answers and submitted by clicking the submit button. So let's look at the stats and look at what has been responded to each question. So first question was, who are you? Please note that this question allowed multiple answers. So it was noted that around 84% of the surveyees were LTS users, which is good because we want to know, get the feedback of LTS users and what they think about LTS and more. 15% were Debian developers, and the other stats available. There were like a couple of people from the DSA team, from the security team, from the release team as well. So these were the people who were the surveyees. Please let me know in case you want to stress on to some at some particular point. So I'll just stop right there. The second question was, how long have you been using Debian? So it looks that 45% of people have been using Debian for about 20 to 20 years. which is great. And about 40% have been using, 20% have been using for more than 20 years, and about another 20% have been using for 5 to 10 years. So that's great. The next part was, how long have you been using LTS? So out of the surveys, 45% have been using LTS for 4 to 6 years. And for about 30%, they have been using LTS for 1 to 3 years. And about 5 or 6% have been started using LTS very recently. And some people don't use LTS at all. I would like to focus on this point, but I'm going to talk about this further as we go down. The next question was, are you using ELTS, extended LTS? So 45%, around 45%, it was pretty surprising to me that 45% are not. And the equivalent amount, that is around 35%, were not using LTS, and they didn't even know what ELTS is. So that's a bit surprising, because people don't even know that this project exists in the first place. But 14% on the other hand are using ELTS. So yeah, again, I'll talk about people who don't even know ELTS later, after the stats have been presented. So moving on to the next question was, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being very happy and 1 being very unhappy, how happy are you with the LTS updates? Well, it looks like people are happy. People are very happy. About more than 75% of people are happy. You see, they're rated 8, 9, 10 on a scale of 10. And there are some people less than 5% who have rated below or 7 or below. So, well, I think that's really good, because it looks like people are really happy with the LTS updates. So moving on. I hope I'm audible to you all.
Yes, we are
Audible to you all? All right. Okay. So the next question is, all right. Okay. So the next question, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being very happy and 1 being very unhappy, how happy are you with, how quickly do you receive LTS updates? So it looks to me that, again, people are pretty happy. About 75% again, I'm sorry, 55% people are very happy. And please note that around 25% people did not answer this particular question. And the majority of people are very happy. They've rated between 8, 9, 10. And some people are not happy, which are less than 8%, 9%, I think. So, which I think is great, again, because a majority of people are happy. You see all the colors here. The majority of them are happy. There's this portion which has not been answered here. So, moving on. How would you feel if you could no longer use Debian LTS? Well, 45% people, again, would be very disappointed if they could no longer use LTS, and around 33% would feel somewhat disappointed, and about 6% would not be disappointed, which again is kind of good, because it looks like people want to use LTS and they're liking what we're doing. So that's great. Again, the next question was, where do you use LTS? Please note that this question also allowed multiple answers. So the sum of this percentage might not sum up to 100. So yeah, it looks like 60% use at work, around 50% they use at home, and around 15 to 16% they use it in another organization. So that's interesting. Again, if people are using at work, maybe we could reach out and ask them to sponsor this project. But I'll talk about this again in the upcoming section. So the next question was, if you use LTS at work or in an organization, how big is that? It's very surprising that if you see about 10% people say that their organization is over 1,000 people. That means some big organizations or maybe companies or startup are using, big startups I mean, are using LTS. And maybe we should again reach out more to these people in case asking for sponsoring this project. And about 20% people who use LTS have only 11 to 100 people. 15% who use LTS have around 100 to 1,000 people. So yeah, this is, I think, the second last question, which was objective in nature. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being very happy and 1 being very unhappy, if your Debian duties led to interact with LTS contributors, how would you rate the interaction with the set contributors? Again, I think people are pretty happy because it looks like around 75% people are super happy. When I say super happy, I mean those who rated 10, 9, and 8, and maybe even a 7. And around 10, 15% people have voted for 6 and 5, and less than 4% have gone down to the other numbers. So I think on an average, we're doing great. People are happy in the interactions as well. The last question was, how likely would you recommend Debian LTS to a friend or colleague? Again, it was a question where people could rate their answer from 1 to 10, with 1 being very unlikely and 10 being very likely. 48% said they would definitely do so, and about another 25% or so were also likely in favor, but not as much. And less than, I think, 6%, 7% were responses in the other, on the lower side, not on the scale. So I think it's good again. I can also cover the subjective questions. There were also subjective questions. The subjective questions were, first of all, why do you use LTS? There were around 500, 600 responses, out of which I've cherry-picked some of the interesting ones. So they've answered, the first answer that I've picked was to feel safe on production environment, and even we get to enjoy on weekends, even after deploying on Fridays. So that's great. They also use Debian LTS, this is the next one, because they feel safe, comfortable, and happy, and they've got less pressure, and they want to have spare time for family and avoid using very quick upgrades. The next was they want stability and no bad surprises. People are willing to for it to be more predictable and stable. And sometimes they also don't have time to upgrade hundreds of servers. We saw that 60% of people were using LTS in their work. So some of those people have responded like they don't really have time to upgrade hundreds of people. The another interesting response was it works as advertised, which is nice. Another interesting response is it is customizable like Gentoo, but easy to set up like Ubuntu. I wonder what that means, but it's nice. So moving on to the next question. The question was, do you see problems with Debian LTS? Well, again, we're like, I think 200 or so responses. I've cherry-picked around 5 or 6. So the first one was that time frame they think is too short. They want LTS to be extended to 10 years instead of what it is now. They want the backport of key packages like Firefox and Chromium more often than we generally do. They also fear, so another interesting reply was that they fear that LTS project may stop since they think it's an unofficial and just a side project of Debian. And so they've asked their employer to sponsor LTS. So that is nice. People are fearing that LTS project may stop anytime. And the problem that they suggested was it's more like a suggestion, more like a wish list request. It said that it would be nice in case there would be more hardware that could be supported in case instead of just 2 or 3. So yeah, moving on to the last part of the question, that was what suggestions and wishes do you have for Debian LTS? Again, a lot of people replied that they would really like if Debian LTS could extend its time period to about 10 years. They also mentioned a couple of things that they mentioned was we can improve on the Debian on the documentation part, and also sometimes people in other countries find ELTS and LTS to be a bit expensive, and people also want it to be more official with Debian, because when I was going through the responses, it looks like people are afraid that Debian LTS is not an official part of Debian, and they want it to be officially recognized and supported. Another response that please move stuff from LTS to ELTS magically. That was a response. It was a suggestion for us. There were a lot of good wishes. People saying congrats and best wishes on the project. It was really nice. People they're really enjoying, and they have no complaints. And some suggestions were also there, like use automatic scripts to upgrade to next LTS by default. So another response was that we should be more visible. We should spread about this project more, which brings me to this particular point, that when people answer that they don't even know that ELTS exists, and also a lot of people who answered I'm not using LTS, I saw the responses, and they were more like people don't even know that LTS exists. So forget about ELTS, people not even aware that LTS exists, and they only thought the LTS available was Ubuntu LTS and not Debian LTS. So I think this is one point where we can improve. We should spread the awareness more. We should actually make this project more visible to others, and so that more people can use Debian LTS. So another important point in the responses is that people said they are using Debian only because of Debian LTS, which is, I think, pretty good and pretty nice for the entire project. And yeah, and finally, last two responses are, first, stay alive. That is what people suggest and wish for the Debian LTS contributors. Please stay alive. Don't go anywhere. And finally, all in caps lock, thank you, DDs, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Thank you, Debian people, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. And thank you, Debian, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Well, that's it from the survey end. Please let me know in case you've got more questions about this. I'll be happy to answer them.
Great.
Yeah. Otherwise, we can probably move on and have this discussion on the mailing list. So, yeah.
Some people ask on IRC and elsewhere, and yeah, we will publish the results soon, and we're not clear yet whether we all publish all the data behind it. So now we're in a kind of free flow Q&A. There's several contributors here, some users, I think, some fellow developers. Please speak up your mind, add questions, comments, whatever.
Well, there are some comments and questions on the YouTube pad. The first statement is, thanks a lot for your great work, Debian LTS team, and there are like 2 +1s to it. Another +1. Well, +1 from my side too. Holger, are you following up with the question on the Etherpad?
I'm following up on the question. Which one exactly? I can see them.
There are like 5 comments as I see it.
So yeah, there's one comment that big organizations are not necessarily easy to become sponsors because they might be public administrations. Yeah, of course, there's some comment about the validity of the study because everybody's Debian friendly people. Yeah. Then I read that the Debian Cloud team is continuing to publish Stretch LTS images for AWS, Microsoft Azure, and OpenStack, which is nice. I personally expect quite some people become LTS users or having become LTS users without knowing, because now since Jessie, the same repository URL works for LTS, so I suspect some people now use Stretch LTS without knowing it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. So there's a question from my RC. Can someone ask on the pad, how can we help? Rafael, would you want to answer that one?
One help, which is frequently useful and needed, is to review and test packages before we publish them. So if you subscribe to the LTS mailing list, there's whatever, every week or every second week, mail, hey, I've got prepared a new kernel or a new GoScript update or some big packages, and asking for testing them. That's a good way to help. And the other way to help is also like the LTS team is working like the security team, so we use the same resources, we use their tracker. So if you help there, you also help LTS, and vice versa.
Well, another point where you can help is spreading the awareness. We're all trying to spread more awareness, and as visible in the survey results, that we definitely do need to work on spreading more awareness about this project, that this exists and people should use it. Yeah, so these are all the pointers where you can help.
Sorry.
maybe just to bring a little question to maybe start the conversation. Is the LTS work just business as usual now, or what are the challenges that are upcoming for LTS, and what are the things that might be changing in the future?
One challenge is deprecation of software, like whatever Python 2 or other software where there's no upstream support anymore. But the nice thing is that there's other LTS distributions where we can share patches with. The challenge is also having enough people contributing. So we constantly look for new contributors, because over the time some people part and the work gets more because the archive is growing. So we will need more people supporting it. Wieso ist denn der...
Still almost 20 minutes to go, so if you want to discuss something, now's the time.
Alter, ey.
And what is the CIP project that is mentioned on the Etherpad? It says I better cooperate with it, but I'm not sure we cooperate with it in the first place right now. I don't know who is typing.
The Civil Infrastructure Platform project is a consortium at the Linux Foundation that is trying to support kernel and core user space software for up to about 10 years. I have been doing some work with them on the kernel side, and they're sponsoring LTS in order to get the user space that they care about supported for longer.
Mm-hmm.
They're also trying to align with Debian on the kernel versions that they use, or they're not using Debian's kernel package.
Okay. All right.
Well, somebody asked, why is LTS not officially a part of Debian? Holger, would you want to take that?
So we lost the audio. Somebody's asked the question why LTS is not officially part of Debian. And I don't really know what that means or how official LTS could become. Like, we're using the same repository, we're a Debian sub-project. So how should LTS become more officially part of Debian? What would that mean? So it seems video conferencing is still hard. Should we close this BoF now, or does somebody has more questions, points to discuss?
And maybe, do we still have something planned for tomorrow? It's
For
the
what?
last Thursday of the month. Or is it supposed to replace our usual monthly meeting?
Yeah, so do you think we should rely on IRC meetings only? Or do you think any other alternative might work for us for our monthly meetings?
You asked me, Utkarsh?
It's
Or it
just,
was a
just a
general question?
question to all. Do you think it's better to rely on IRC as well itself, or just find another alternative to, let's say, since it's causing some problems?
I'm not sure we want to answer this today. Do you hear me, by the way? I'm trying another browser yet again.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I was not live before because Chrome is not working for me and Firefox is crashing, but the ESR version seems to be working for a while.
Mhm.
So I'm Raphael. And I tried to answer some of the question on the. Yes, I lost already. Jitsi is definitely not working very well for us so far for the LTS meetings. I'm not sure why. I still believe it's important to try to use those among paid contributors, at least. So this is a hard discussion. I mean, yeah, I don't think it's the right time for this discussion. We are here to answer questions for other project members, and this is a question for later.
Sure.
I agree. Now it's not the time, but maybe we can discuss this right afterwards on IRC, because our next meeting is tomorrow. Maybe we can discuss this right afterwards on IRC, because our next meeting is tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I can expand a little bit on the funding part. For the question why is not LTS an official part of Debian, so it has always been that way, that paying Debian developers directly out of Debian money is a challenge, and we have been discussing this quite often, and the only workaround that we have found is to use an external structure, and this so far has been quite well accepted. But the downside is that while the list of sponsors does not appear on the Debian.org website because the sponsor is not paying Debian directly, and getting Debian people to acknowledge that sponsoring Friction is actually sponsoring Debian is difficult, so sponsors are not listed on the Debian.org website. That's it. And the way it started as a separate team means that we had to make some special choices in terms of an infrastructure. That's the reason why uploads are only going to the security repository, because the release manager, their job is finished, so they did not want to handle further stable point release. This is something that could be possibly discussed, but it needs a larger cooperation with other teams. Yeah, last question. What package are maintained as part of LTS? Right now it's all archive except those which are not supported as listed in Debian security support. When we started, we made some choice to exclude some of the harder packages, but we are now we have enough sponsorship to cover the whole workload roughly. So we are not making we're not excluding package just out of lack of funding. It's usually due to technical reasons, like the security team does. Are there other questions that I missed?
By the way, we do not support Zen right now for LTS Stretch, do we? By the way, we do not support Zen right now for LTS Stretch, do we?
No, we don't. I think it has been
It's reference in security support
by the security team even before before we took over. But I'm not sure, right?
Because we still have references to Credative about it.
But I think this decision was taken.
We do not support Zen.
Okay.
I just checked in the Etherpad. There's the
Oh, yes,
there's
it's
the
since
there's the
January.
URL to the Debian security support package and the security support ended Deb9 link, and we do not support them. The URL to the Debian security support package and the security support ended Deb9 link, and we do not support them.
We used to work with Credative to get the support, but basically the speculative execution CPU bugs implied a very large unmaintainable patch that was not really backportable, and ever since only the very last release of Xena has been supported in Debian, and I guess as far as I remember, this decision was made by the security team before the start of the LTS period.
Yeah, I see. In January.
So we are not resurrecting the support of packages that were already not supported before. So
5 minutes left.
I wanted to highlight a comment on the survey. We did have a lot of negative feedback, but I guess we had some, and we specifically asked people to identify if they are part of some Debian core teams and some Debian, or if there are Debian developers. The idea was that we can cross-check and identify the negative or positive feedback from the subset of people who are really impacted by our work or by our use of the infrastructure. And so while we haven't made this work yet, I think we will do it and look closely on those parts.
Yeah,
Because with more than 500 individual answers, with free-form answer, it's
yeah. So I was saying that I'll work on this part after DebConf, so probably it'll be available in next week, next 10 days or so, something like that. Probably it'll be available in next week, next 10 days or so, something like that.
okay.
About the ability
Holger, are you still here to officially close the meeting or not?
Last question. When you said about making dot releases, possibly in cooperation with FTP masters, is this something that we want, that we tried? Dot releases, possibly in cooperation with FTP masters, is it something that we want, that we tried?
We have not tried very hard. I'm not sure. Well, whether we want it is. I would say yes. It's always nice to be able to have updated images or be it installer images or cloud images with all the security updates already applied, and having a lighter apt update to run on first boot. But as you understand, it's not only a question to work with FTP master, because if we want images, we need to work with Debian CD team, with the cloud team, and with the Debian installer team, and so on and so on. So it's quite well.
Okay.
It will require work from them or us getting involved in all those teams to do the work. So.
Okay, thank you.
And given that we have few negative feedbacks explaining us that this is missing, we have not made huge efforts towards this direction.
Any last closing words?
Okay, Holger.
I don't have final words. I'm happy we made this, so I think we can improve on the technology and maybe the structure. But I'm glad we had this conversation. Happy we made this, so I think we can improve on the technology and maybe the structure.
Yeah, really thank you for coming, and thanks to Putin for doing for taking on all the notes. Yeah, really thank you for coming. Great of you to do that. Thank you. For taking on all
No problem. Thank you for making Debian LTS. No problem. Thank you for making Debian LTS.